Chapter 3, Operations with Fractions. A fraction is used to represent part of a whole. We can use a picture in order to represent that. For example, one of the most simplest ones, just use a circle, and if we want to represent 1/2, split it in a half, and 1/2 would be, if I shade it in, this part right here. All of this. So this would be 1/2. So we can represent any fraction using pictures. Now when we're looking at fractions, there are a numerator and a denominator. And all this simply means is the numerator is the top number. It tells you how many pieces are shaded. And the denominator is the bottom part. And it tells you how many pieces the whole is broken into. For example, in the top, it shows 1 is shaded, and there's 2 pieces in total. So we can use pictures or models in order to show this. Equivalent fractions are fractions that are exactly the same. They just might be broken up into different pieces. So we can use different ways, different fractions in order to break it up. So let's take this one right here. If I take this lovely looking pizza, if I were to cut it perfectly in half from here to here, okay, and then I shade in 1/2 of this pizza, so all of this is shaded in. Okay. This represents 1/2 of the pizza. Now if I were to split the pizza up into 4 pieces like this, there's still the same amount of pizza shaded, but now it's not broken into 2 parts. It is broken into 4 parts, and there are 2 pieces shaded in. So they are equivalent because they really do represent the same amount. They're just broken up differently into different pieces. Okay. So if you're giving a fraction, say like this, 5 out of 10, and we're trying to change it into a equivalent fraction, we could do that by looking at what happened from the bottom to the next bottom. So what would you have to do to get 70 out of 10? Well, you'd have to times it by 7. So if you do that to the bottom, you must do it to the top. Multiply that by 7. So 7 times 5 is 35. So now we have 2 equivalent fractions. Here's another one. This time we're not given the bottom. So we can go backwards to go from 2 to 8. What must you multiply 2 by to get 8? And the answer is 4, because 2 times 4 is 8. So what must you multiply the bottom by? The same thing. So multiply that by 4. 9 times 4 is 36. Now we've found the missing value simply by looking at the top. And the only way we can do that is if we're told that they are equivalent fractions, or we have to make an equivalent fraction. So let's look at this one right here. To go from 5 to 10, we've got to multiply it by 2. Since we did that to the top, to make sure it stays equivalent or equal, we must multiply the bottom by the same. 2 times 7 is 14. Now we have the exact same equivalent fraction. Here's the one where we got several of them missing, and we're told they're all equivalent. Well, let's do the first one. Let's multiply 7 by something to give us 14. And we know that 2 times 7 is 14, so we must multiply 5 by 2 as well. 5 times 2 is 10, and we're done with that one. Now, perhaps the easiest way to do it is start off with the smallest one when we're trying to figure out this one again. So let's do this. What about to go from 5 all the way up to 15? What must you multiply? Well, 3 times 5 is 15, so let's multiply 7 by the same thing. 3 times 7 is 21. The only one we have left to do now is figure out this one here. And I like to use the smallest one. It seems like it's easier to do. So let's go with 7 to 35. And if we multiply 7 times 5, that'll give us 35. So if we do the same thing over here, and we multiply it by 5, 5 times 5 is 25. And now we have all of ours figured out. So I always like starting with the lowest one because it's easy to multiply then to get that number or to get that number. We can put a fraction in its lowest terms or its simplest form. In other words, make it as small as we can get it. 2 over 4 is not as small as it can go. That is equal to 1/2, and we can't make it any smaller than that. And the easiest way to do it is to divide the numerator and the denominator by the greatest common factor. In other words, what can we divide both of it by? So the first thing we got to do is list the factors of each item to find them. So here's an example. We've got two numbers here. We've been given this 28 over 20, and we want to make this smaller. So we got to see what can we divide 28 by that we can also divide 20 by. So let's list out what times what will give you 20. Well, we know 1 times 20. That's the easiest one. Same with down here. 1 times 28. 2 times 10 will also give us 20. So 2 times 10 will also give us 20. 3 will not work. 4 will work. 4 times 5 will give us 20. And of course, we don't need to go any further because we've come back to 5 again. We've gone past that. So here's our factors of 20. For this one here, we know 1 times 28 works. We know 2 times 14 because it is a even number, 28 is. Will 3 work? Let's see, 3 7s are 21, 3 8s are 24, 3 9s are 27. It's not going to work. Will 4 work? 4 times 7 will work. 4 times 7 is 28. And then 5 times 5 will not work, 6 will not work, and then we're back to 7. So there's our actual factors of 28. Now which ones are the same? Well, we know 1 and 1, 2 and 2, 4 and 4, 5, this is the greatest one that is the same. So if we divide the top by 4 and the bottom by 4, we will make this fraction as low as it can go. So 28 divided by 4, or what times 4 is 28? The answer is 7. And 20 divided by 4, or what times 4 is 20? The answer will be 5. Now we've made this as low as it can go. The only thing we could do is instead of leaving it as an improper fraction, we could write it as 1 and 2/5. It would mean the same thing, but it wouldn't be an improper fraction. It would be a mixed number. Another one, find the greatest common factor of 36 and 48. If you're really good at your multiplication facts, you can go and say, well, I know 6 times 6 is 36, and 8 times 6 is 48. And all of a sudden you figured out 6 is the highest one that you can do. If you can't figure that out, just write it out. You got 1 times 36, we've got 2 times 18, you've got 3 times 12, and then you could go 9 times 4, but right now I got a feeling 12 might actually be the lowest or the highest one you can come up with. Let's try 48. We got 1 times 48, we've got 2 times 24, we've got 3 times 16, and then we've got 4 times 12, and 12 will be our lowest, or sorry, our highest common factor, or greatest common factor. So if we divide this by 12, and we divide the bottom by 12, 36 divided by 12, 12 will go into 36 3 times. 12 will go into 48 4 times, and that is the lowest we can make that fraction. You can also multiply fractions and whole numbers using models. So if we had 2/3 and we wanted to add it up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times, that's really the same as going 6 times 2/3. Now if we wanted to shade in 6 2/3, we'll shade them all in. There's 1, 2. So we keep shading them in till we got 6 of them shaded in at 2/3. Okay, and that's 1/3, 2/3. I got 1 done. 2 of them are done. 3, 4, 5, 6. There, I've got 6 2/3. Now the only thing I got to do is keep filling in these guys by taking them away from here. So I can take this guy, I can fill him in right here. Done. Take this guy, fill him in right here. Done. Take this one, fill it in right there. Done. And take this guy and fill it in right here. Done. Now you notice these two are empty, so we don't need them anymore because they're empty. And what have I got? I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So my answer is 12/3, which of course will equal 1 whole, 2 wholes, 3, 4. And the answer there is 4. Now, we can take that and do the same thing with 4 of the 3/5. So again, I could take, I need 4 of these, so I'm going to go 2, 3, 4. So I draw 4 times 3/5. Now all I got to do is start filling them in again, taking them from the furthest one over. And here's what I've got left. I've got 2 whole, and I've got 1 2/5. And there's my answer. Now, the easier way to do it, once you get used to doing it, is simply remember, multiply the top by the top and the bottom by the bottom. You're not always going to draw pictures. So in order to do 4 whole times 3/5, I could just multiply this times this. 4 times 3 is 12. And then 5 times, of course, any number can be written over 1, any whole number. So 5 times 1 is 5. And then when you change it to a mixed number, you're going to get it twice and 2/5, because 5 goes into 12 2 times, and you got 2 left over. Another example, 6 whole times 1/9. So we times the top by the top. So 6 times 1 is 6, and 9 times 1, of course, because it is 1 there, is still going to be 9. Now you can reduce that by dividing each one by 3. 6 divided by 3 and 9 divided by 3. And the answer is 2/3. You can simplify that one, just like you did in the previous example.